The war against fascism is still happening, but this is a battle, a very important battle. Anyway, look, Mohsen is finally free. Detained Palestinian American student speaks after his court hearing. We'll show you the images right here. Mohsen Mahdawi, Palestinian American student on a green card, it has been officially freed. For those of you who don't know, Mohsen was one of the student activist leaders. He is very outspoken. He's a humanist. He's a humanitarian. That was his main focus on this issue. He has tried to make inroads with even Zionists on campus and Israelis on campus, and Israeli advocacy groups on campus in an effort to try and find a reasonable middle ground. He is perhaps one of the best examples of a perfect victim, like straightforwardly a perfect victim. And he was in perhaps one of the most depraved immigrant enforcement actions, in spite of his approach to the subject matter, in spite of the fact that he is a perfect communicator of the Palestinian Emancipatory Clause from the cause, Palestinian Emancipatory Cause, from a perspective that like American squishy liberals will also appreciate and understand. He was still unjustly apprehended, and his apprehension was absolutely insane. The way that they apprehended him was he knew that the government was most likely going to come after him, so he was in hiding in Vermont. Okay? And knowing full well that he was in hiding in Vermont, the government actually called him in to an immigration office. They called him into an immigration office to tell him that they called him into an immigration office to tell him that this was the day of his citizenship test, like he was about to be naturalized as a U.S. citizen. Right before he went to this immigration facility, this immigration administrative facility, he gave an interview to Akilah Lacey where he basically said, either I am going to tomorrow become an American citizen, finally go through the naturalization process, become an American citizen, as they say they want to do, or I'm going to be detained by ICE. And the scariest, the scary thing that he suspected was going to happen did end up happening. 14 ICE plainclothes officers rolled up to his immigration hearing, his naturalization ceremony, what was supposed to be his naturalization ceremony, and detained him. They apprehended him and they put him in prison. And in the process, there wasn't a lot of fuss about this, with some very important and notable exceptions. I will admit, Bernie Sanders, I think, really disappointed me in this. But you know who didn't disappoint me? Ed Markey. You know who didn't disappoint me? The other Vermont senator. What's his name? Pete Welch? Peter Welch, sorry. Just like Peter Welch, United States Senator from Vermont, he went and he talked to Mohsen directly, and he offered him a microphone. He offered he basically showed his plight to the rest of the world. He showed his plight to America. Okay, this was his interview. This was his last interview, by the way. Speaking to CBS's what is her name? Lilia Luciano, one day before his scheduled citizenship interview in Vermont, where the Columbia student Palestinian activist was detained by immigration agents, where he told CBS, the work and activism that we have done was centered in the energy of love. We did it because of our love for humanity, our love for justice, our love for human rights. I want people to know my compassion extended beyond the Palestinian people. My compassion is also for the Jewish people and the Israelis as well. And in spite of all of that, they still arrested him. They still detained him. They still tried to accelerate the process of revoking his green card. And for what? A First Amendment violation. An incredibly scary precedent is on the verge of being set by this administration. They are trying to tackle this issue from the perspective. They're trying to tackle this issue from the perspective of immigration enforcement, where they want to say non-citizens do not have the same constitutional protections that citizens have. Right now, as it stands, contrary to the popular opinion of dumb reactionaries, in the United States of America, as long as you are on U.S. soil, documented, undocumented, citizen, non-citizen alike, you are protected by the Constitution. The Constitution offers you protections against government overreach. That's what the Constitution is there to do. Okay? The Trump administration is trying to tackle this problem because it's a problem for them, because they don't want the First Amendment to exist. They don't want many constitutional protections to exist. Unlawful search and seizure is another constitutional protection that they don't want. And they've actually been able to get away with revoking the Fourth Amendment, 14th Amendment, and even freedom of speech in many instances, as a matter of fact. They've been able to take advantage of the previous erosions of certain constitutional amendments. And the way that they are doing this is so nefarious, but so visible. They're doing it in broad daylight. They are using immigration enforcement to decouple non-citizens, okay? Non-citizens as being protected by the Constitution. It is unconstitutional what they're doing here, okay? They are trying to erode due process. They are trying to take away the First Amendment rights of non-citizens. And they keep claiming that the non-citizens are actually devoid of constitutional protections anyway. This is a very dangerous precedent, especially when paired up with an erosion of the erosion of due process. Because once you take away due process, you can never show that you are a citizen. And the Trump administration has deported citizens already, citizen children, as a matter of fact, alongside their non-citizen parents. Understand that this is a major, major victory for civil liberties in this country, but it's not done yet. Yeah. And I'm glad that the judge openly admitted that even if he was a firebrand, even if he said stuff that I haven't even said, he has every right to remain on U.S. soil. You can 100%, if we're talking about constitutional protections, you can literally say whatever the fuck you want as a green card recipient and not get in trouble for it on that alone. You can't incite a riot, right? You can't do that. You can't do that. That is illegal. That's a separate offense. But you cannot be deported, which is a very high criminal penalty for simply saying things, for simply doing hate speech even. I'm not even talking about what Mohsen said, okay? I'm talking about like Nazi demonstrations of neo-Nazi. The Constitution protects citizens and non-citizens alike from demonstrating or from being prosecuted for demonstrating. That's the whole point. And these guys aren't doing that anyway. But I need you to understand that there's a reason why the First Amendment exists. And this is precisely that reason. It is so that a fascist administrative state can't just unjustifiably revoke your legal status on U.S. soil for the crime of saying fuck Israel, which Mohsen didn't even say, by the way. Anyway, I'm like I said, this is a fantastic, fantastic moment. This is incredible victory, and it's just the beginning. Like I said, with Chris Van Hollen going down to CCOT to see Kilmar Abrego Garcia in person and get proof of life and have him actually shipped out of CCOT to a different detention facility. That was a major, major victory. That was a good start. That was a major battle won. It's not the war. This is not a victory. This is a bare minimum. No, it is a victorious battle. It is not the end of the war, okay? The war is still ongoing. The war against fascism is still happening. But this is a battle, a very important battle. And there's still plenty more to fight.
Wait. And the Mohawk people who used to live here and who we are standing on their remainings. I say aho mitakuya uyesen, all of my relations. Second part, I want to thank all of you here. I want to thank everyone who held the sign, who raised their voice, who wrote a post, who contacted their representatives, who sang a song, who made a prayer. Thank you.
A Columbia student detained by ICE is now free after a federal judge ordered his immediate
It's not a Pyrrhic
release.
victory anyway, because it's not a
Mohsen Mahdawi
useless
was
victory,
arrested
but it
just
is a
after his
costly
interview
one.
for U.S. citizenship. The judge says his 2 weeks in detention demonstrate great harm to a person who has been charged with no crime. Now, Mahdawi says he has faith in the justice system, saying injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
If we have faith in our beliefs, unshakable beliefs, which is the belief that justice is inevitable, we will not fear anyone, because our fight is a fight for democracy, is a fight for humanity. Amen. To President Trump and his cabinet, yes, I am not afraid of you.
Hell yeah.
And let's bring in ABC News immigration reporter Armando Garcia for more. Armando, what more can you tell us about this decision and the significance here?
Well, it's definitely very significant, because we got to remember Mohsen Mahdawi is just one of several students right now that are in immigration detention centers across the country being targeted by the Trump administration for their role in the pro-Palestinian protests on campuses. In his ruling, the judge said that Mohsen should be allowed to continue his studies. As we've reported, he is expected to graduate next year, in just a few weeks next month. But also, this is just really, really stunning, because a lot of people are going to be looking at this case. As I mentioned, there's a lot of students that have been targeted by the Trump administration for similar reasons, but they're still in detention. Mr. Khalil has just been ordered removable under one count under the administration's charges against him. So this is something definitely that they're going to be using to see if they could find relief for their clients as well.
So as you say, he's not the only student who's been detained over pro-Palestinian activism. You're kind of touching on this, but can you tell a little bit more about how the
Vermont congressional delegation, 2 senators and 1 rep, have a joint statement applauding the decision to free Mohsen Mahdawi. Senator Bernie Sanders, Peter Welch, and Representative Becca Balint today released the following statement after Judge Jeffrey Crawford ordered the release of Mohsen Mahdawi, who was illegally detained by the Trump administration. We are relieved that Mohsen Mahdawi was released on bail from ICE detention in Vermont and that the constitutional right to due process prevailed. Mohsen Mahdawi is here in the United States legally and acted legally. He should never experience this grave injustice, said Sanders, Welch, and Balint. The Trump administration's actions in this case and in so many other cases of wrongfully detained, deported, and disappeared people are shameful and immoral. This is an important first step. We will continue to fight against President Trump's assault on the rule of law. Anyway, here's another fantastic thing that took place, of course, in the aftermath of the release of Mohsen Mahdawi. Shai Davide is crying. I don't want to talk about Mohsen Mahdawi being released from prison. Soon we will all pay for Mohsen's freedom. Yeah. Shai Davide. He's crying. Shai David crying that the Trump administration did not force through an unjustifiable apprehension and revocation of legal permanent residency status from a person who didn't even do anything wrong to Shai, by the way. He actually, Mohsen, is one of these guys that's like impossible to persecute, okay? He is too peaceful for his own good, I would say. From what I understand, Mohsen actually met Shai and had what he thought was a productive conversation, but that fucking lunatic turned around and demanded his detention, his permanent detention. God damn. Anyway, speaking of petulant children, let's go and watch